Good morning and welcome in to the Mueller Sports Report and Mueller in the Morning. I am your host, Jared K. Mueller. You can find me on Twitter at Jared K. Mueller. That's JaredKMueller. Hope you're doing okay this morning on this Friday Eve as we take our first sip, not of coffee, but of a nice thing of ice cold water. So, as I always talk about something a little bit different each time to start off these Mueller in the Morning podcasts, one of the things I want to talk about and just start with is, so last night I was on the 1085 Gridiron podcast with Anthony Joki and Jack McCurry, and it's actually really interesting. The goal was to have a shorter podcast than we normally do, and we still ran for over an hour talking about our beloved Cleveland Browns. And it tells me one thing, and I said this to Jack this morning, it tells me that I, when I'm passionate about things, can struggle to control my nature. And when I say my nature, I mean I'm naturally an extrovert. I'm naturally someone who likes to talk through things. I'm naturally someone who more is better. And that came out last night. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but when you know the plan and think the plan is to be shorter and you still run over an hour, and again, it was all good content. I thought it was a great conversation. I think Jack and Anthony do a good job of kind of teeing me up, which is maybe their goal, which I think they did a good job of. But it's just one of those things about me and understanding kind of how I let my midbrain, my habits, my nature kind of take over. It's actually one of the reasons I'm trying to do these morning podcasts, these short morning podcasts, is to start to train myself, to go away from just always kind of going with my nature. And so, again, it was a good podcast, a lot of good information, a lot of great questions by Jack and Anthony. I encourage you to listen to the 1085 Gridiron podcast because I think you'll enjoy it. It's a lot of me, it's a lot of Anthony, it's a lot of Jack. So, but again, I think it's important to realize how easy it is for anybody to just go with their natural inclinations instead of really thinking about how they do things and prepping and preparing and controlling really your nature. And so that's just something that kind of stuck with me after last night's recording and thinking about this morning's podcast. And so that's my challenge to you guys today is think about how you do things, and I challenge you to go against your nature. Not that I want you to try to be somebody different. I don't mean that at all. But don't just go with whatever naturally kind of happens. You're really good at that already. Whatever your natural thing is, you're really already good at it. You've already got those habits, everything like that. Instead, I encourage you to try to find some level of self-control to get stronger in the areas you currently are not, instead of just focusing on the things you already are good at. So, speaking of already good, if you watched the Cavs game last night, are you excited yet? Are you starting to see what could be with this team, right? Kevin Love had a really, really good game. 9 out of 17, 5 of 10, 50% from the three-point line, 14 rebounds. He had 5 assists. Got the ball moving. Larry Nance, who, unlike Love, is probably more a part of the team's future, with 15 boards and 19 points, also over 50% shooting from the field. Jetty had a bad game shooting, 3 of 14, 33% from the three-point line, still had 13 points, but did not shoot well. I don't know what to say about Matthew Dellavedova. That Delly time, that's long gone. But he tries really hard. And then you have the man of the hour. You look at Colin Sexton and you look at his, in 45 minutes, 17 of 30. 17 of 30. Now he shot 3 of 9 from three-point land. Would love that to be 4 of 9, right? That's how kind of the difference in the NBA can sometimes be kind of razor thin. If that's 4 of 9, it's a lot better than 3 of 9, right? There's just kind of that level there. But 3 rebounds, 6 assists. He actually had the ball moving. Now he had some fouls, 5, 4 turnovers. He didn't have the perfect game, but at 41 points, especially with Kevin Porter Jr. going out with the head injury early in the first quarter. I think you can maybe start to see it, right? Put Darius Garland into Matthew Dellavedova's 35 minutes. You start to see it a little bit, right? Obviously, the Celtics weren't full. They didn't have their whole cast there. They basically had Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart and a few other pieces, but still, the Cavaliers gave effort. I don't know what to say about JB Bickerstaff and his staff and what they've been able to do since taking over John Beilein. I know the record isn't amazing, but you see a difference, right? You see a team who is trying really hard. You see a kind of an old Kevin Love, the Kevin Love who is really focused or quote unquote all in, right? You see a team that is playing with purpose, that is playing to try to win, that seems to be enjoying themselves. And that's something we haven't seen from the Cavaliers most of the season, and honestly, a lot of last year even didn't seem to really be enjoying just playing basketball. And I think that's something that, while it can be overstated at times, I think in general it's probably under-thought about, under-discussed, that it is a game. And so, because it's a game, it's best played in fun. It's best played in enjoyment. And so when you kind of look to where the Cavs' future is, Colin Sexton may never be, I don't care which player you want to compare him to, he may never be Russell Westbrook-like, or he may never be James Harden-like, he may never be Damian Lillard-like, he may never be blank. He may never be the player that you can just put into a box and say, he is just like, or he, blah, blah, blah. But he does show you almost every game that he is going to be a solid part of the Cavaliers' future. He could be even a good part of the Cavaliers' future, and some nights he can be a great part of the Cavaliers' future. Now, obviously, game flow and some of those kind of things kind of dictated how things went a little bit, but imagine if Matthew Dellavedova is replaced by even a functional Darius Garland, right? Darius Garland who gets 10 points and, whatever else he may have given. Just imagine Tristan Thompson, got minutes instead of Dean Wade or Anton Zizic. Or imagine Kevin Porter was able to play the rest of the game, and so Jetty's minutes go down a little bit, and yada yada yada. Do the Cavaliers beat the Celtics last night? Now, from a lottery perspective, we don't want the Cavs to win, right? We want them to be playing games meaningfully to show that they can play in the league, but we don't want them to win, because what we know the Cavs, or believe the Cavs, are missing, maybe, because the 6'7" Kevin Porter Jr. is starting to make some people wonder, right? Because he's a rookie, right? And playing against Jason Tatum is a great person for them to kind of think about, because Tatum showed signs, but really in most people's minds, he took that next step this year, right? So we're not talking about in his rookie year or even his second year. He took that step this year. And so maybe Kevin Porter Jr. is that guy, but what I think you can see with the Cavaliers is what you kind of saw last night in the main event game, and that's the New Orleans Pelicans versus the Dallas Mavericks. In that game, you saw two players who are cornerstone, number one type players in Zion Williamson and Luka Doncic. You look at those two players, and so, just looking at their box scores are obviously with Luka is just downright amazing. 30 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists, a steal, a block. Now, he did have 7 turnovers, right? And so, but just an amazing all-around game. 9 of 20, 4 of 11. Again, you would want that to be 5 or so instead of 4. But still, just an amazing all-around game. And then Zion, 9 of 18 from the field. Only had 6 rebounds, only had 3 assists, had 21 points. Not the overly dominant game, but part of that is when you look at the rest of the roster. Brandon Ingram, 27. Derek Favors, 10. Lonzo Ball, 25 points. Drew Holiday, 19 points. You just had some players doing some things around him, as opposed to where Luka also had Porzingis with 34, Tim Hardaway with 18, the other Curry with 21. So you had not only two number one type players, but you had two number one type players who are surrounded by some decent to significant other talent. And that talent has some age to it, right? Even though it's a couple years, Lonzo Ball's been in the league for a couple years. Brandon Ingram's been in the league for a couple years. Drew Holiday's been in the league for more than a couple years. Derek Favors been in the league for more than a couple years. Kristaps Porzingis has been in the league for a few years. Tim Hardaway, right? So you have players, even Curry has been around for a little while now. So you not only have players with some skill, you have players that have been around for a little while, but can still play. And I think that's where the Cavaliers will have some interesting decision to make with Kevin Love. Obviously, him being bought in is going to be vital to this process, if he's bought into what's happening. And I think he can be a little re-energized by Kevin Porter Jr., because he sees it, right? He sees that guy, the one that has to be able to take over games, maybe having the maturity and the NBA background of JB Bickerstaff helps him be bought in. But I think with Love, the Cavs really will continue to have to ask the question, is he worth and important enough to keep around so that the young guys have not just a veteran, but have a veteran who can play, right? Have a veteran who can get you 26 and 14 and 5, right? Who can block a shot. He can do those kind of things, because those are the type of things that are helping Zion Williamson, Luka Doncic, all those other players, is to have somebody else that they can rely on. The odds are that Tristan Thompson is gone after the year. Matthew Dellavedova is semi-pointless at this point in time. Andre Drummond, we don't know if he's going to pick up his option. Really, it seems like that'll just depend on how the season ends and if his agent is hearing any other team is willing to pay him whatever amount of money that he thinks is worth from a long-term contract to get out of Cleveland and maybe find a winner and those kind of things. So it really kind of comes back to Kevin Love. As Colin Sexton is having a great game, Kevin Love is having a Kevin Love kind of game. Again, 9 of 17 from the field. 5 of those being three-pointers, 50% from the field, 14 boards and 5 assists. That is an all-around kind of Kevin Love game. And while we can imagine that because he's not the most athletic, that he will continue to struggle on the defensive end, which may be why Drummond might actually be helpful, or why James Wiseman could be the Cavs pick in the first round next year. When you look at where the Cavaliers want to be and where they are, you can start to see a direction with young guys, with Garland as the point guard, Sexton as the two guard, Kevin Porter Jr., who I talked about, I think, yesterday, being taller than people want to say. Tristan said he was 6'7", yesterday, I believe. You start to see you've got those 3 young wing point kind of players. And then you have Kevin Love, and you have Larry Nance, and you have Cedi Osman. You start to see something. And I think that's really where this upcoming the upcoming NBA draft really does start to be the defining moment for the Cleveland Cavaliers. And that's because I think the upcoming NBA draft is really going to help them move that next step forward. And so if you look at where the Cavs are and where they want to go, if Kevin Porter is your 3 and so now you're small. You're small at point guard. You're small at shooting guard with Sexton. You're small maybe at the 3, and then you have Kevin Love playing center. I think that's where a player like James Wiseman could be interesting, is to move Love back to the 4, have a big center who can really kind of switch out and make things more difficult for opponents. Or, and I'm not going to be able to pronounce this guy's name right at this point in time, but the kid from Maccabi Tel Aviv, Denis Avdija. Again, I hope I'm anywhere near what it needs to be, but you're looking at a kid who could play that small ball 4, 3-4, kind of just continue that process with the Cavaliers where you have somebody who can do a little bit of everything. He's a 19-year-old. And I think at that level, the Cavs could add a player who fits, right? He may not be a Luka Doncic. He may not be a Zion Williamson, but he may be a perfect fit for where the Cavs want to go, especially when you look at Gus Edwards and LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton and Cole Anthony and all the other guys that are kind of in this draft. And I think then you're really looking at almost having to go with somebody who fits a little bit better, because that's really what the NBA is about. Could you really add another shooting guard, a young shooting guard, without moving on from Darius Garland or Colin Sexton? A young point guard without moving on from Darius Garland or Colin Sexton or Kevin Porter Jr.? Can you do that? I know you want to add more talent, but what David Griffin taught us, and on the Brown side, John Dorsey failed, is that team building a team that fits and works together, is more important at times than just talent. And so I think what we may have seen, and have seen over the last few games from the Cleveland Cavaliers, is with Kevin Porter Jr. and Colin Sexton. And again, we've seen so little out of Darius Garland this year. We haven't even really seen the kind of streaks that maybe we would hope to. And that makes sense. He played 4 games last year and has a long way to go to kind of get back into it and get a good feel. But with Kevin Porter Jr. and Colin Sexton, the Cavs may be at a point where they start to look for fits over talents. Not that I'm saying either one of those guys are going to be your Luka Doncic or Zion Williamson, but if they can play off of each other, along with Darius Garland coming together, all of a sudden now you're looking at, whether Wiseman at center if Drummond leaves, or even if Drummond doesn't leave, to have a center who can shoot a little bit, but can, switch, is huge, is tall, is long, like all the things that he does. Maybe those can fit, because the Cavs are a little smaller at other positions. Either way, hopefully last night was exciting for everybody. I know they didn't win. I know. But maybe, just maybe, Colin Sexton, Kevin Porter Jr., and then maybe next year, Darius Garland. Maybe the Cavs have the foundation of their future. Whether that foundation adds Denny Avdija or adds James Wiseman to fit, or instead adds a LaMelo Ball and a Gus Edwards and an RJ Hampton and all those guys just because of talent. Either way, I think we can start to see where the Cavaliers are going to be moving forward. Just remember that in the NBA, unlike the NFL, more like Major League Baseball, players take time. It takes years for players to really kind of get over the hump and to really figure it out. It is rare. It is so rare that a LeBron James can lift a team in his first 3, 4, 5 years. It's just so rare. Luka Doncic has been playing with adults since he was like 14 years old. It's rare. So instead, it's about building, it's about growing, it's about developing. And it looks like the Cavaliers are on the right track. So I hope you guys enjoy your Friday Eve, this Thursday, March 5th. Thank you for stopping by for Mueller in the Morning here on the Mueller Sports Report. Again, I am your host, Jared Mueller. You can get a hold of me on Twitter at Jared K. Mueller. That's JaredKMueller. Have a great day. Take care of each other and take care of yourself.